Okay, so I think we are live now. Emir, can you hear me well?
Yeah. Yes. Good.
Okay,
Sounds good.
great. Welcome.
Do you hear
Welcome
me?
back to the meetup. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah,
Oh, great.
everything's fine. Thank you. Great.
Yeah.
So nice to have you here for this meetup. I think this was an idea, maybe your idea, back in maybe 6 months before, saying that why don't we come up to make some CNCF series as a CNCF member. So it was actually maybe one of your one of our colleagues teammates idea. So if I remember well, you are one of the maybe one of the founder of this idea. So thank you also to come up with, with such idea to begin a CNCF series. And
Yeah.
CNCF has obviously several meetups, uh, several several projects,
Yeah.
uh, and it's wide scope of projects that we can observe on in CNCF, and it's almost not possible also for us, for me also to experience all of them. But I know you experience some of them, and maybe you have some couple of words before we begin
Mhm.
about some comments on CNCF, your experience on CNCF projects, how you approach to people, to our audience who
Mhm.
wants to experience more CNCF projects, because there are lots of projects. So they need
Yeah.
to you need to maybe advise them, right? Because you have hands-on experience on several projects.
Yes. Actually, when we searched our one of the problems like monitoring, logging, or storage layer things or networking. So when we ask our problems and search them into the Google, when you check the top of the line, probably you will see the tools which is already in the landscape of the CNCF. Those are very indispensable tools for us. For example, on the Prometheus and Grafana, but all tools are just yes, those are very important for us. Some of the tools are changing our approach, our application design, or our main architecture. But actually, when we take all the things, CNCF not just uh, where do you deploy application. Cloud Native Foundation and rule set and their manifest just focus to how do you do something else. So if you want to find the answer a question which is start with the how, you can find your answer in the landscape of the CNCF or rule set of the CNCF. But CN and Cloud Native is not just care about the where do you deploy your application, because when the people see the cloud word in the Cloud Native uh, environment, people always say, "Oh, shall I deploy my and move and migrate my application stack into the AWS?" Actually, this is not because Cloud Native just care about and Cloud World just represent your infrastructure wherever you want to work, or bare metal, or Google Cloud, or VMware, or wherever you working on. Actually,
Yeah,
that's my introduced words about the
yeah, thank you.
CNCF series
Yeah,
and
great.
summarize all.
Yeah, great startup. Thank you, really, because I know you have experience of several projects on CNCF scope landscape, and that's why your view is really important. And as you said, from what I understood, anyone who needs a tool to solve their problem, they are able to find a relevant project on CNCF regarding their cloud native transition. So that's what I understood from your couple of words, and also there's always, as it's a wide community behind CNCF projects, I know several companies are like racing each other to donate their project to CNCF. Right?
Yes,
Lately,
like
Microsoft,
Falco.
yeah, like Falco from Sysdig, and lately Microsoft also has donated. I don't remember the name of the project, but so there are the companies are also racing to donate their projects. Maybe one of the reasons that they consider one project is just backed by Microsoft or backed by Google, right? It's not. It will not be just. It will not be a good reason that a customer who would not like to have a vendor lock would be. It would not be the first choice. So that's why. I think one of the reasons, maybe main reason, main motivations is to donate to the CNCF is maybe this motivation. So before beginning, for everyone, if you have any question, don't hesitate to comment on YouTube. When you comment, we will be able to see it. and it's up to Emir to like suspend, stop, and answer, or maybe at the end. So it is up to you, Emir. Feel free how you wish to continue. And as Chloe, we do not always speak in DevOps Underground, but as today we are committing to have a speaker here, Emir. We are one of the sponsor, but usually, as you know, we have rarely we have speakers. But Emir, thank you again. So now you're on the stage. So again, we'll be expecting your comments. Thank you, Alif. And now stage is on you, Emir. Thank you again for your attendance.
Thank you, Daria, and thank you everyone who joined us. First, thank you for valuable times. And so today, I'm gonna start and tell a story about the Grafana Loki, actually. So before beginning of this meeting with Daria, we have already introduced our main motivation why we started the CNCF series. In another community in Turkey with the name DevOps Turkey, we have already completed session 2 with my friend Akın, and he already completed his own session about the Falco and runtime security on container world. And so we are looking forward to other further meeting, and we are open to your contribution and who is interesting cloud native world, actually. So yes, before we start, I want to introduce myself. My name is Emir, and I am one of the platform and infrastructure engineer at Kloya. And especially, I am working on the container bucket project. But I am one of the author of the VM to Kubernetes stories, actually. But the main motivation, as we already mentioned at the beginning of the session, we are using cloud native tools, and this cloud native foundation has a couple of and various of and very rich landscape page, and you can find a solution for your problems in this page. But actually, we decided to share our knowledge and experience with you guys. So that's our main motivation before we start our CNCF series. And the subject of today is we will talk about the Grafana Loki. But before we start, I want to add and make 2 important words into the cloud native world. And maybe someone else joined us yet. Actually, cloud native just focus on how do you deploy, how do you build, how do you develop your application. If you want to find an answer with the question which is starting with the how, you can find the solution in cloud native world. But cloud native is not care about the where do you deploy application. It's not enforced to let's deploy everything into the cloud. Not cloud just represent your infrastructure. For example, on the Kubernetes environment, all the components and some of the Kubernetes components starting with the word like cloud manager. It is not represent AWS. It just represent your infrastructure what you have. You can and it represent and it abstract your infrastructure from your platform. That's the main approach of the cloud native, and that's my understanding from cloud native world. Actually, for the cloud native environment, I think our words and sentences are and understandings are enough, and I can start to tell about our subject in today. Actually, Grafana Loki is one of the tool set of the Grafana family. So when you check the Grafana web page, you can see there varies a couple of tools. One of is Grafana and Loki and other. I forgot the name of the distributed tracer, but they have a tracer tool for that. Actually, Grafana world has a varies of tools on itself, and Prometheus and Grafana and Alert Manager. Those 3 tools are very using very well between each other. Before we start, I just want to show you overall architecture of the Prometheus, Grafana, and Alert Manager. Before we start, Prometheus, I just want to, sorry, there was a possible accident on my chair. And so actually, in a couple of minutes, maybe I will disappear from the screen and I will fall down. I'm not sure about my safety. Okay, anyway, sorry about that. Actually, Prometheus, just a full based tool. So what does it mean? Prometheus has a target addresses. So Prometheus knows the where to pull our metrics from our metric exporter. For example, when you deploy the Prometheus stack with the Helm, you will see the node exporter already installed into your instance as a daemon set, and you can see all the required metrics and all the produced metrics from your nodes. And Prometheus knows that address as well. And Prometheus pull that metrics from those exporters. That's the main approach of the Prometheus. And Prometheus store them into the TSDB and generate alerts and route those alerts into the alert manager. Alert manager can notify your notification channel. And beside of the alert manager, you have a Grafana, and Grafana uses the Prometheus as a data source and visualize all your data and propagate and visualize all the data into the panels with Prometheus query language. So actually, there is no abstraction layer between each other. Just Grafana calls the Prometheus with the PromQL, and Prometheus send the alerts into the alert manager with the API of the alert manager. So there is no actually abstraction. There is an abstraction layer between each other, but there is no component to require the abstract between each other. So actually, this is the common and overall architecture, and this is a very similar approach all of the cloud native tools. So this combine of work is locating our Kubernetes cluster in nowadays, and so this combine of work helps to visualize and monitor our fully of infrastructure. So before we start, I want to introduce with the Prometheus, because our Loki story will start with the Prometheus. So in second hand side, we have an exporter, as I mentioned it before, and all the Prometheus exporter has a metric format based on your requirement. For example, you want to show some time series data with the histogram, and you want to show everything just basically, and Gauss metric format is enough for you. So this is up to you. But each Prometheus exporter needs a Prometheus metric and produce all the metrics with the Prometheus metric format. This is very important because you can produce your metrics over JSON, but Prometheus is not compatible, and Prometheus is not does not parse your metrics over the JSON. Prometheus needs own format to propagate some of the data. So let's check into this Prometheus exporter example metric. Actually, some of us is aware of this metric format. For example, there's an PostgreSQL vacuum host page hit metric, and so this metric has a label with the instance, job, and server. So Prometheus exporters always label all the data and index them into their own TSDB. So this is the very important inspiration point of the Loki from the Prometheus side. So we want archive this information and put it into our mind. In the next page, we will unarchive it and retalk it again. Actually, all the Prometheus environments, as I said, Prometheus has their own metric format, and labeling all the metrics continuously while it's pulling on itself. So let's jump into the another thing in Loki world. So I want to jump into the Elasticsearch environment. Elasticsearch and Loki is comparing between each other because Loki is the one of the centralized log centralization mechanism all around the world, and Elasticsearch using for these purposes. But actually, at the background of the Elasticsearch has an engine at the background with the name Lucene, and so Lucene engine is has a own index mechanism with the name inverted index. So Lucene always fetch the data, and Lucene parse the data by the stop words or other thing what you have. I just talking about the basically. I'm not expert of the Lucene of Elasticsearch, but as basically at the background, Lucene is index all the content. So content indexing is very important and major point of this environment, because when the Lucene start to index all the content, it might be a problem when you have a highly write operation. So, for example, log producing is very high and continuous operation, and it always continues. So log shipper always always produce the logs in 24 hours, because logging always continue, and your application always produce the log, create the logs based on, and you must store them in centralized places based on your regulation or some of the security concerns. Actually, this high write operation might be a problem on inverted index data structure, because Lucene always index fully of content. And by the way, Elasticsearch has a different kind of data structure, like BKD trees to store the data, like geo-IP and geolocation or numeric values. Actually, this approach might be a problem, because when you have a high write operation, it is very hard to search in your. It's very hard to search your historical data. So these requirements force the Grafana community to develop a tool which is inspired from Prometheus. Let's jump into the Loki style indexing. So in this page, we will show how the Loki represent and find how the Loki find the solution to content indexing, and how to Loki prevent the index fully of content. Actually, so when we check our inspiration point of the Prometheus, we can see two important points. One of is content, and the second one is index and label of the log. Actually, as I mentioned before, Prometheus just stored the so actually Prometheus stored both of them into the TSDB, metric and label. But metric value just can be a 4 char or 3, 5. It's no matter, but it's not longer than a log message. Actually, Loki do the same thing for the logs, and Loki label all the log by application namespace, container name. It's up to you, and add the timestamp for each log. After that, just index the label of the logs, not the content, because content might be very huge. It can be a 5-10 line. You don't know it, but actually it is. To be honest, it's actually more than and longer than a metric, because logs and we don't know how many logs will producing from our application, and so it can be a couple of lines. And so Loki just index them and store them into the their own storage layer what it have. Actually, this is calling with the name Loki style indexing, and this is the main inspiration point from the Prometheus. So let's jump into the overall architecture of the Loki. So Loki has a two kind of different thing. Let's jump into the previous page. And so we have an index we have an index which is containing our labels, namespace, container, blah, blah. And we have a timestamp. And other hand side, we have a content. And so Loki stores all the contents into the chunks and store all the index values in index table. So it's up to your configuration. So let's jump into this picture and this diagram. So this diagram, and when we check the bottom of this diagram, we will see the index and chunk. So in chunks are containing our log values, index just containing our metric labels or other things what we have. So this index and chunk separation allows to easily query our logs. Actually, index are referring to the chunks. So this is the main architecture and main approach of the logs to the logs of Loki. So actually, the purple box are representing a components of the Loki. And so when we check our query coming through over the developers or who is the consumer wants to access Loki logs, and ingester just ingest the logs between two part, index and chunks. Ingester send the logs into the chunks, log values, and put the index values into the index table what you have. There's a various of option to store chunks and indexes based on your infrastructure. And so actually, let's talk about the storage options. So Loki guys, Loki teams actually, Loki teams suggesting some of the options to us, but the main approach and the main best practice is located at the picture at the right hand side. So when we check the first picture, yes, we are able to store our Loki states like index and chunks into our file system. It's possible, but if you want to run the Loki in production environment, you must locate your chunks into the different places like Minio, like GCP buckets, AWS, etc. Loki advise and suggest this way if you want to run the Loki in production. It's up to you. If you have a on-prem environment, you can deploy and provision your Minio buckets because it's compatible with the S3 API, and it's the most popular object storage all around the world. And so if you want to locate all the stack into the GCP, yes, it's possible. Loki supports that. On Azure side, I have checked the pull request for that, but I am not sure. Is that storing Azure Blob Storage? But we need to check. Actually, as a summary, Loki suggests to separate your state from Loki instance. Actually, this is the main approach, but there's a question mark appearing on my mind. What is this? So actually, if I want to query something on my chunks and indexes, how do Loki handle if I locate them into the different buckets or different object storage? Actually, in this case, BoltDB helped us to do that. Actually, BoltDB has a built-in component of the Loki, as I see, and so it has a cache value, and it stores all the values in file system. And so when we need to query something else, BoltDB route our logs into this cache path. I will show you in configuration of the Loki. But if you want to query something on your more than your cache TTL value, BoltDB route our queries and fetch the values from the chunk and refer it from the indexes and response to us. Actually, that's the main approach of how to Loki handle all the query things. So in this case, I want to jump into another page, but before I do that, I have to stop my sharing, and I will jump into the our. 1 second. Yes. All right. So I want to jump into the my terminal, and I want to connect into my host. So I want to show. So by the way, do you my screen? Do you my terminal? Do you see my terminal? Maybe Dorian, can you confirm us?
Yeah, sure. Let me check it. So please try to share again, Emir.
Yes.
And let me check. Yeah, now it should be okay. We can see it.
All right. So in this case, I want to show how I configured Loki shippers and Loki instances and Bolt DB configuration. And so let's jump into the instance which containing my Loki, and I want to show quick configuration, show the configurations quickly. By the way, I don't want to bother you guys with the configuration things. You can find the various of example on documentation of the Loki. And so let's jump into the Loki and check the Loki.yaml file. So this file containing are a couple of things for the Loki. For example, like the listening port, which is accepting our produced log from our log shippers. And it containing ingester component things, because ingester containing some of the things in memory of the operating system, and putting them into our storage layer thing. And Bolt DB stores something like cache. So this cache TTL can be increased, but it might a problem, and it depends on your storage. It depends on your storage layer capabilities and the size of the main disk what you have on your data center or limits on the cloud. But actually on default configuration, as I see, 24 hours is the default cache value. So this cache TTL is locating in your file system, and your query is routing into this place. And by the way, you can add, for example, couple of limits into the Loki. For example, you can add the reject all sample. What does it mean? So you can add limitation of the logs which has a timestamp older than for example, I have added 168 hours. Actually, Loki will not accept this log samples older than this value, but I can enable it. It's up to your configuration requirement. And by the way, ingesting rate is one of the important limit of the Loki. You can decrease or increase based on your requirement. In previous step, so in further step, I will talk about the log shipper configuration things actually. So this is my default Loki configuration, and I actually, to be honest, I have just copied and passed it into there and updated some of the configuration like limits or cache TTL. But it has a basic YAML file end of the day. So let me check my Loki instance. It is working? Yes, something is working and responding to me. So let's jump into our Grafana page. And I want to show you how I configure. Yes, save it. Yeah, correct. So actually, so we are adding Grafana. We are adding Loki instance as a data source into Grafana like Prometheus. So it has an easy configuration. By the way, all of the data source has just a couple of basic configuration that could based on the requirements, but overall, all of the all of the data source configuration similar between each other. For example, on the Prometheus side, it requires a CA root if you have, or client certificate. It has a similar configuration on Loki side. It not require extra configuration while you are adding Loki as a data source. So I did not add an extra configuration for authenticating Grafana while accessing to the Loki. So let's check it up. Yes, data source is working properly. It finds some of the labels and blah, blah, blah. So let's jump into our dashboard. Before I show the dashboard, I want to show you guys log shipper and log shipper configuration. Let's jump into there. And in this session, I have set up a simple Kubernetes cluster as basically with the kubeadm, and I want to show you this. So manifest, this one, yes. So on my Kubernetes configuration, I have enabled audit logs, and so this audit logs allows to me to see all the actions at audit level and log all the action at audit level based on my audit policy YAML file. And I have added them into and mounted into my Kubernetes API server addresses and mounted them over the host path. And so that's all the stuff to fetch the audit logs from my cluster. So in this case, I will show you how to visualize and how to produce metrics from the logs with Loki and Prometheus for the Kubernetes audit logs. So I will jump into the, and by the way, I can easily tell that. Audit.log. By the way, there was, yes, is rotated logs. But my Kubernetes cluster is producing logs at audit level and saying something. Let me show my audit policy, what I have, and audit policy.yaml file. Yes, I have added some of the components at request level, and some of the action has been disabled to prevent the possible non-values and noise, to prevent to see the noisy logs into my audit logs. And I have updated some of the I'm just logging my resources at the request level, and some of the work at just the request level. And yes, that's all the policy. I will share all the GitHub repository, and you can find my audit policy which is using in there. So in Prometheus side, I have just referred to my audit log path and set to my Prometheus file. And yes, Prometheus just follow there and push all of them into this log instance. That's all the story. Prometheus is the compatible and very useful tool with the Loki. So probably you will see when you search something to shipping some logs into the Loki, Google shows up to Prometheus as an answer. But you are able to do that with the FluentBit. As I see, it has a simple plugin, and you are able to push something into the logs, something into the Loki from FluentBit. So let's check it up all the Prometheus configuration. Actually, it has a couple of things like labeling logs. Actually, all the logs containing a couple of labels like job and host, you can be ensured and you can find where the log message is coming from with the host label tag, and you can find the agent, and you can see which path is reading by my log shipper. Actually, this is the easy configuration at the scrape config level. And so there is another important two things. One of is the host path of the Loki instance, which is already connected before. And another thing is the position.yaml file. So this file containing yes, all right. So yes, this file is containing a couple of things. So for example, Loki might, however, Loki can stop on selves and stop to accept the logs from the log shipper, and Promtail store and refer where the cursor is stop the reading and stop the sending logs into the Loki. So it is a very important thing. So because when the Loki start to accept the logs, Promtail will start to produce all the logs into the Loki instance, referred and based on the value in position.yaml file. So this is very important to prevent to lose your logs. So this approach is very important at the data integrity level. And before you are setting up those things into the production environment, you must be aware of all of them. And yes, so that's all the overall configuration of the Promtail. And so it's reading audit logs of the API server and sending them into our Loki instance. So let's jump into there. Let's check this audit dashboard. So actually, before this session, I have created and developed this Loki dashboard and Grafana dashboard. Grafana dashboard to show you. Actually, this data visualization is the main responsible of the Grafana, and Grafana doing this job is very well. And we have a couple of options to visualize our data, like graphs, like tables, or log page. It's up to us, but Grafana present a couple of options to us. So actually, I have just queried some of the things into the Loki site, and as you can see from there, we have a label and label containing our file name, and send it to us, and we can query all the things like that. So actually, I can parse all the data, and I can show all the activity from there. This is the one of the panel example, but I have added more valuable thing like cluster top user agent and exec attention from the logs and watch object calls. So those are the very important tools while you are auditing or while you want to watch the activity on your cluster. So let's try to do something, and let's try to access and do something on our cluster. And actually, I have a privileged cluster, so privileged pod YAML. Yes, it's created. And let's check the privileged path. And yes, as we can see, privileged panel shows up something to us, and somebody created privileged logs with the name unsecure privileged container. So let me show how I parsed this thing. So actually, this is the native query language of the Loki with the name LogQL. So with the LogQL, you can use the native JSON part of the LogQL, but probably it's so maybe it is up to me, but I'm not fully familiar of the LogQL. And with the nested JSON file, I could not realize it all the actions with the LogQL. Probably I will need to work on it. But as basically, I can parse all the security context, which is creating with the privileged true, and I can parse them and put the response object metadata name into there. And so we have a couple of options to show. For example, exec attention. I'm doing same thing into my LogQL. So let's jump into there. And get some of the pods. And yes, it's executed. And yes, we can see all the exec attempts here on our cluster, and it shows up somebody execute try to execute something on our Kubernetes pods. Actually, you can see all the actions from there. And so actually you can see the user exec attention. You can see who is trying to do something. For example, Kubernetes admin is trying to execute something on the pods. I have parsed all things like that. So there was a sum of the parsed fields by the Loki. So this is the common behavior of all of the centralized log mechanism. So let's jump into the explore path. So explore tab of the Grafana and discard. So I want to show you all the logs in there. So actually, with the Grafana side, with the yes, Grafana already storing all the labels which is produced from the Loki, and we can easily query them and run the query and show the something else. Yes, all right. So actually, in this log messages, yes, it has some of the detected field in there. For example, I can see all the audit ID and level of the log message, request URI, as you can see, our timestamp. Yes, those are the detected fields. But with the nested fields, you need to update your queries, and you can parse the values. I could not do that easily. Probably I need to work on it. But actually, there was a couple of example with the nested field of logql. But actually, you are able to do that, and Loki allows to do that actually. And so yes, that's the. So if you want to try to build queries or build the dashboards with the data in Loki, you can try it on the Explore site. By the way, this is the native property of the Grafana. You can try to your queries in there. For example, different data sources like Prometheus. Actually, I want to jump into our audit dashboard and show the one more thing to you guys. And yes, generate errors. Yes, it's easy one. So I want to show you changes in the table panels. Let's jump into there, and you will see all the things. Yes. So there was a action which is coming from the curl, so you can see all the actions. And for example, somehow people can use a tool which containing a curl or Python request library, and you can see all the user malicious agents or not. It's but with Loki you can parse all of them. So yes, I will try the create a malicious actions on my cluster, and it always return the forbidden to me because it is just sending a request with the curl and wants to fetch some of the secrets under the default namespace. And yes, you can see the curl actions, and there was a 6 attention which is coming through over the curl header. And you can see the non-authenticated access and secrets unauthenticated actions on the panel with the graph and non-kubectl access. So actually, I have created those, and I am fetching those values easily from the Loki site. So it is easy to handle and create a basic dashboards for your requirements. Depends on your requirements. It's up to you. So yes, there was a couple of interesting dashboards all around the world. I want to show you guys it. So Loki Nginx V2 dashboards, and yes. So on the Nginx side, you have to so on Nginx side, if you want to visualize some of the data, you must be already have a maybe Nginx Plus or some paid product. But with the Loki, you just enable this detailed log format, and after that you just update your prom tail and add the Nginx access log. After that, you are able to create the dashboards like that. For example, you can see all the more detailed information instead of beside of stop status endpoint of the Nginx. And beside of these options, you can add the GeoIP data with the GeoIP module of Nginx. So this is up to you, but with your requirement, Loki and Grafana is very good stuff while you want to visualize some of the data and produce the metrics from your logs. So based on your requirements, you can write your own query and create different dashboards. This is up to you. So let's jump into our presentation, and I want to show you all the this is my last topic with Loki security compliance. So actually, when I check the Loki security compliance page on Grafana, so it is already shows up the GDPR or COC, SOC. So the other certificates already in there, but I'm not familiar with all the security compliance requirement because there was another important security compliance with the name GDPR2, but I'm not sure Loki already compliant with it. You must be aware of this. Beside of the security compliance thing, if you are using Loki on your production with based on the best practices which mentioned it before, for example, if you are using and if you are storing all the chunks into your Minio or S3 buckets, you must be ensure your buckets are already encrypted with the KMS, or your buckets are available just for the only responsible people who just responsible with the security compliance or data integrity or your security team. So while you are using a tool like Loki, and if you have a third-party components, you must be aware of this. For example, Loki is able to store all the index into the DynamoDB table. You must be ensure all the permissions of the members who in your account, for example, in AWS, is fully access to the DynamoDB table, except of the security teams or data integrity teams. So actually, you must be aware of your third-party components while you are using while we are using them with Loki. Actually, beside of the security compliance thing, you must be aware all of this and all of the compliance of all of the resources what you have. So this is the actually end of the story. And if you want to join us, let's write us from the LinkedIn and Twitter or wherever you want, actually. So this is my last page, and this is my end of the presentation. Actually, I'm stopping my share, and yes, that's the whole story. If you have any question, I'm glad to answer that. Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Emir, for the clarification of what is Loki. Maybe we can have a quick chat about in what type of situation would you suggest the audience to prefer Loki on compared to other technologies which is more popular in the industry? So Loki is upcoming a new one, and also it has the more look-friendly database, time series database, like Prometheus does. So yeah, from that point of view, maybe it is more relevant for a log database rather than maybe a listen-based database. That may be an issue, but as a summary, log centralization and log requirements, log management requirement is everybody's let's say concern to fulfill in their project. So would you recommend Loki in any type of your requirement or case, or would you recommend Loki for such certain type of requirements? So maybe we can get your view about to our audience about this.
Actually, as I see on the comparison between the other tools of the Loki, for example, actually, based on some of the security compliance, like GDPR2, I'm not sure about that. Maybe Loki might be a problem if you require this compliance in your current infrastructure. And so, but actually, the other hand side, Loki produce the other required compliance what you need. So, but on the data integrity side, as I mentioned at the end of the presentation, you must be ensure all the components is compliant with your requirement. So this is the most major thing while you are using a log centralization tool. And the other comparison of the Loki with the Splunk is the one of the important enterprise log centralization tool. Splunk has some of the business analytic tools on itself, and Loki says we are not comparing ourselves, and we are not presenting a solution for those business analytic things. Actually, if you require and if you are using already those technical and business analytic tools of the Splunk, and if Loki is not presenting a solution for this. But for the Elasticsearch and Loki comparison, so if you are fully compliant, but if you want to prevent possible index management problems, you can switch Loki actually. But for all the companies, all the teams, compliance is the most important thing. Before you do this migration, you must be aware of all the compliance requirements actually. Yes, that's the my overview all of the log centralization tool.
Okay, so thank you. So as a summary, you are recommending for teams who are more under some such type of strict regulation, like maybe finance or maybe like enterprises, certain type of enterprises, to consider Loki cautiously by checking also its support regarding their requirements. But in general, for the startups who are not under any regulation, may consider Loki. From what I understood. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your presentation. And any couple of words before we close the session from your side about CNCF or about Loki, maybe Emir, or others, or maybe to our audience, what type of maybe you can mention about what are your top 3 popular CNCF projects, maybe if you would like to share with us.
So actually, may I missed something because I want to communicate with my mom. Is that question for me? Sorry.
I was asking, what is your top 3 CNCF project?
For me?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Thank you. So actually, end of the session, I was very trusted. I requested the water. Yeah, sorry about that. Actually, my top 3, the one of is Kubernetes, absolutely. And the second one is Core DNS. And the third one is absolutely Prometheus. Those are my top 3 tools in CNCF environment.
Okay, thank you again for your time, and thank you again for the presentation. If any questions, additional topics to the audience, you can always comment to our meetup page. So I will let you know. I will let Emir know about the questions on the meetup page. So just for everyone, for the next meetup is AWS Web Architect Immersion Day. It will be on 10th of June. So whoever are interested, I am also adding it to the comments. And so yeah, the next CNCF topic, it will be announced, Said. So not clear yet, but it will be announced soon. So please follow the meetup page, and hopefully you will get notification. So thank you for everyone. Thank you, Emir. So
thank you.
CNCF meetups. So thank you guys. Thank you for attendance.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.